Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Texas Motor Speedway in Fort Worth, Texas, where we are gearing up to race the 2018 Coca-Cola Indy 600. 600 miles around this 1.5 mile racetrack, repaved recently in the heart of Texas. Joining me today will be Tommy Parker and Clayton Hardy. How are you guys doing today?
Doing well there, Nas. Yeah, we're here in just outside of Fort Worth and looking ready to get a little crazy here with the wild cards here in Texas.
Yeah, and something that I'm going to be looking forward to today is that it's another pretty big racetrack. We're going to be seeing a good bit of pack racing. We're expecting a good bit of pack racing. It should be pretty fun to watch, but we're looking at how we've just come from a couple of races here that are shorter ovals. As we take a look at the point standings now, we have Andrew Draco leading right now with Christine Espinoza and Ryan Perlstein hot on the heels. So we were seeing not at the beginning of the season where Alpine was seeming to lead the way, but right now that none of them are on the podium. They're currently 4th through 6th. Are we expecting to see them come back now that we're on a bigger oval?
I would think so. It seems like Alpine has had the overall pace and the overall speed at a lot of these racetracks. They dominated in testing. They seem to dominate at some of the other ovals, at least in the qualifying sense. Had strong runs at Calder and strong runs and a win with Sakura Ishibashi at Motegi. So it would be remiss to not include Alpine in the talks as one of the strong contenders here.
Yeah, and something also worth noting is you notice the races column is a little bit short for some of these drivers. As we now look further down the field, those bottom 25 now have been bumped out of the safe zone, and they'll have to race their way into the next few races. But going off of that is what we saw at that race column. Several drivers actually failed to qualify for Phoenix. Christine Espinoza, Jamie Marie Jardine, and Astrid Crane. All three of them are in the top 6 in the championship, and they're even doing that missing one race. And in Marie Jardine's case, she's missed 2. It really shows how strong these drivers are that they can miss a full race and still be in that top 6 right now.
Yeah, it definitely shows the talent that these drivers have, although no driver wants to miss a race, especially to pre-qualifying, but that's how it is here in the NAMRA Vodafone IndyCar Series. You got to put in the qualifying laps to get yourself in the show. But we'll see whether or not these missed races catch up with them at the end of the season there, Nas.
Yeah, absolutely. And Clayton, we've been here before. We've seen these big races on these big ovals. What are we expecting to see early on here?
This is probably our first chance at a pack racing affair. It's soft compound tire, so there's going to be a lot of initial grip, and it's going to drop off really quickly. But when that grip's there, expect a lot of 2-wide racing, a lot of 3-wide racing. This track really is run wherever you can. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be arguably insane. But it's going to be different than what we've seen so far this season, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, now taking a look at some of our drivers to look for, we have Patrick Marcelli here with his first career pole position. Patrick has been a strong contender, as well as the 48 of Christine Espinoza. She's starting 6th today. Remember, did not qualify for Phoenix, but is still 2nd in the championship. Jamie Marie Jardine missed out on 2 races so far. She's starting 10th. She's 6th right now. Very strong runs when she does make the grid. Now that she's in the top 24 in points, which is just reset, her along with the other 2 we've seen, and right here Astrid Crane, they're all going to be locked in for the next set of races, which is good for them because it seems that if they can get all the races in, they'll qualify well. Here's as well Stephanie Porter Kelly starting 12th. She's the best standing Chevy driver as it stands. She'll be on the outside of Astrid Crane. And Matthew Evans is making his first start of the points season in that white number 50 Honda. It's going to be interesting to see what will happen here as we are now looking at Andrew Draco starting in 17th. He is the reigning champion and current leader in the points standings and is looking pretty strong right now. Not the best qualifying effort, though. And Sakura Ishibashi, 5th in the championship, but starting last today. They just couldn't quite get qualifying right, could they, Hardy?
Absolutely not. You look at Cameron Jackson, he's got the Vodafone on board for the first time this season. Yeah, Ishibashi, one of those low moments, either by design or just couldn't get it going. Qualifying was started by like 3/10. So just because she's starting back there doesn't mean she'll stay back there. But it's not dangerous.
No, I think it might actually become a bit of a benefit here because they can ride out if they would choose and keep that car out of trouble for the first bit here. And we mentioned that onboard, that driver cam. We'll get back to that in a minute. But for now, let's take a look at the starting lineup, the official starting grid here coming up in a moment. As we look at the field, you can see that we have 33 cars on this grid. That's a big pack. And there's a lot of drivers to look for, as we've seen there, and there's also a lot of underdogs. This is one of those tracks that anybody can lead it. Anybody has a shot as long as you've made the grid. And getting ready to look at this starting lineup, it's going to be fun to see where these drivers are. We're going to see, obviously, we already see a few big names in the back and a few other names in the front now as we do take a look at that starting grid. See Marcelli and Kovacevic on the front row there.
Yeah, Nicole Lecty and Kimitsu Kinoshita on the second row. The traditional Black Rose Racing, Cat Devil Racing battle that's been going on for years now. It's exciting. We know Lecty's good. Kinoshita's obviously stellar. She's got 2 500 wins. Starting up front doesn't mean much, but it'll be interesting to see how Lecty and Marcelli work together.
Yeah, as we look through a bit deeper in the field, Rogers, Christine Espinoza, Cameron Jackson, Stefan Montana, Taylor, Marie Jardine, Crane, Porter Kelly, Jaramillo Evans, Vander Linden, Torres, Draco, Michelin, Ahmed, another Espinoza, Arite, Manor, and the rest of the grid there. And we're about to send it down now trackside for the command to start engines. We'll be back up with you in the booth just after that.
Drivers, start your engines!
All right, and there we go. The command has been given. The drivers are eager. The fans already standing, and off they go 2 by 2. Tyler, you have some info on tires for today, if I understand correct.
Yes, I do there, Nas. Today we're going to be running, or all the cars that are running in this race are going to be running the red soft wall Pirelli, or red soft compound Pirellis. You can denote this by having a red rim around the sidewall of the tire. These tires are going to offer a little bit more extra grip, so hopefully that'll help with rubbering in that second line so we can get some nice 2-wide racing going through here. Maybe even to 3-wide racing if it's possible, if that very top line rubbers in. But we're definitely going to see some wear after a while, and the drop-off is definitely going to make things interesting. You might shoot through the pack like a rocket, but you might drop like a stone if you don't take care of those tires.
And something that can happen is you may crash. You saw some skid marks there in turn 3 from earlier accidents in practice. It's been a wild weekend already, but now it comes down to this. 600 miles at Texas in the Lone Star State. The pace car's off. They're in the restart zone. We're underway. Still even side by side through the first bit of the dog leg, and now into turn 1. We'll see who can get the advantage, be it the top or the bottom lane. Formed up a bit better on the bottom, nose to tail. Less banking in turns 1 and 2 than in 3 and 4. This newly repaved track has totally reconfigured how this place runs.
Yeah, and the repavement there, Nas, they've been able to sort of shave down some of the nasty bumps that you get into turn 1 and 2, especially coming out of 2. One big bump there.
Oh, we got a big crash. I saw a car up off the ground. The first caution already on lap 1, and that's a massive crash. Guys, we didn't even get 1.5 miles before they wadded it up in the dog leg, and the first caution of the day comes out at the end of lap 1, and it's going to take out several cars. That was a nasty one.
Yeah, that was true, Nas. It looked like a pretty nasty one, and I saw a lot of yellow placards on the tail fins of a lot of these cars. if you think about it, some of these rookies, this is their real first experience on a big super speedway like this with this pack racing. So maybe some early race jitters there.
Yeah, perhaps. And, it's a shame that that happens, especially so early. And Hardy, you know that what that feeling is to crash out early. It can't be good to have that whole weekend of preparation thrown away at the first lap.
Oh, it definitely doesn't feel good. It doesn't matter if it's lap 1 or a final lap. Every time you crash out, it's what could have been. In
Ooh.
Texas, that's
The 6th.
that's
I
always a
believe.
question. Yeah, looks like it was Parker.
Tyler Parker, yeah.
Yellow number plate on the back. It's rough, and hopefully we'll get some replays of that soon because. In fact, here comes the replays.
Let's see. Out of turn 4 here, they're just coming down. It's the first lap. Everybody's close together, and oh my goodness, that is a massive crash. That landed very hard on the T-bar. Luckily, kept it in the track. No catch fence contact, but that is a very, very hard impact to the outside wall, almost at a 45-degree angle. Here's another look at it, and.
Luckily there, Nas, the car did not climb up over the wall and get into the catch fence. It was similarly and eerily representative of what happened at Homestead at the showdown earlier this year. But thankfully, we didn't have cars go airborne.
Yeah, and even when the car was in the air, it didn't seem like it was really flying like we had seen before, but that is Miguel Espinoza, and what I'm very concerned about is, guys, he is 46 years old. He's taken a very hard hit and landed almost directly on the T-bar. I'm very concerned and hoping that he is okay, because the older you get, it doesn't matter how young you are, that's a hard hit. You see Jacob Dakota sliding through there, and I believe this is on board with Porter Kelly. The older you get, the harder these hits are to take.
Yeah. Being young and taking those hits, it hurts. And he's had several in his career. And that's kind of the catch-22 about the catch fencing. The catch fencing dissipates energy, but at the same time, it's a cheese grater. So you don't have that energy dissipation. So you're sitting in the cockpit taking all of it, and that's brutal. Obviously, there's foam inside the cockpits to help absorb the energy, but your legs and particularly your arms, your elbows will take a massive pounding.
Yeah, we're on board with Michelin there. I saw another car get up on 2 wheels, wondered who that was. That was Matthias Michelin up on 2 wheels. Very reminiscent of what we saw from Billy Monger, but he's trying to wheel it and deal it there. He holds on. I think he's actually going to continue driving here, but we see several cars have retired, and you're right, Clayton. It doesn't matter how safe you get these cars. They are still going to be taking violent hits, and that's going to be a big one. But they have cleaned it up already. Luckily, like was mentioned, no real wall riding or any of the catch fence contact. So all the safer barrier is pretty much intact, and there's no damage to the fence. So it was a relatively quick cleanup. All the drivers have gotten out under their own power, which is the good news here. And that's a car without a wing, Hardy. You know a thing or two about that.
If there's a comfortable place to do it, it's here. I'm not sure how quick it'll be, but
I believe that's Michelin there.
Yeah, that's looks like it is a 30. Yeah, Regis, it's a safer place to do it here than Motegi or Dover. So a fair shout to him. He's keeping himself in the race, and throwing something at the wall to see if it sticks. But
it's worth noting that there were 6 retirements from that crash, that being Tyler Parker, the rookie, William Manor, Miguel Espinoza, Jerome Torres, Matthew Evans, who was making his first point start, and Stephanie Porter Kelly, and several others involved in that. But those are the 6 cars that retired as the pace car takes the hard left, and we'll try it again here. The 43 car out front right now, that is Ray Taylor. He has 2 wins from 2017, and one of them came on a track similar to this, a bit bigger though, but similar racing at Auto Club. Green flag back in the air, and away goes Taylor as they come down the back straightaway.
Someone pretty keen on getting by him though with Nicole Lecty. And one thing to note about the drivers out of this crash, there were 3 impulse cars that started this race. Thomas Rogers failed to qualify, so it was Ishibashi, Parker, and Mann. Ishibashi, who started last, kind of needed to use her teammates for information here. And they're gone. She's kind of flying without a sail at this point. So it'll be interesting to see who she teams up with, if she teams up with someone, to kind of get herself forward in this pack.
Speaking of going forward in the pack, that is the number 96 on the bottom of the track. Going to go to the lead there, 3 wide for the lead, and with a big push from your reigning champion and current championship leader of Andrew Draco. And I tell you what, he is absolutely on fire right now because he started mid-pack, and after, granted he had the first caution kind of helping him there, but he's already up to second right now, pushing that rookie in the 96 to the front, and now 2 laps in a row for the 96 car. Great start right now for that one car.
Yeah, that's right, Nas. And we're also having some reports trickle in here that some of these drivers have been cleared from the infield medical center. So right now, I can definitely say that Tyler Parker and William Manor, Stephanie Porter Kelly, and Matthew Evans right now have been cleared from the infield care center. We'll get updates hopefully a little bit later on Miguel and Jerome.
Yeah, and I think they'll be okay. The one that I'm worried about Miguel the most, but like we said, we saw all the drivers get out under their own power, and of course the VRR safety team, the best in the world here, helping these drivers on the scene. And the running joke has been they'll get to your car before it stops crashing. They'll get there before the crash happens. So if you're going to trust anybody, of course, they do their absolute best, and they are, they're the ones you want to put your trust in, because they will take care of you to the best they can. And taking care of this race right now is that number 96 car, pulling out a nice lead. And it looks like it'll actually be about a half-second lead, just under that, 3/10 at the moment. And we're seeing a bit bigger gap than what we're seeing back at Homestead right now. I think the biggest gap anybody pulled at Homestead without a lapped car interfering was about a quarter second. Seems like a little bigger now, but it does look like the one car is reeling in just a little bit.
One thing to keep in mind, though, think about how much people are learning after that first caution. We're not seeing 3 wides anymore, at least outside of the path for the lead with Kovalevich and Draco. It's mostly just 2 wides, and part of you let it do why the gap seems to be bigger. Different tire. The Homestead tire was the harder compound tire, and speaking of driver's experience, grip means everything here in Texas. And I mean, it's still a 2-groove racetrack, but you see right now you see Taylor and Vanderlinden. You need that extra car behind you to make that outside line work right.
But something that's good is that, as you mentioned, that the outside line is working. It is doing a decent job, and that's something that we've seen consistently no matter what tire we've had, is that on these bigger super speedways, the outside line is working much better than in years past, and that is great to see, as we're currently, I believe that is Nuri Jardine underneath. Is that I believe that's about the whole Eiffel Tower racing team right there, nose to tail, with Vander Linden and Nuri Jardine and Crane peeking in the back of the screen there.
Yeah, should be interesting. Now I don't know what the pit window is exactly for these tires. It'll be interesting to see what the strategy is, because you've got an undercut and an overcut. Overcut would be less fuel, lighter car, whereas undercut's obviously fresher tires. It'll be interesting to see what teams will go with, especially seeing as how you've got teammates so close together in various different parts of the racetrack. You've got, great timing here for the camera, you've got Jaramillo and Ahmed for Strike,
yeah.
And then you've got Eiffel Tower, obviously. You've got Lecce and Marcelli for Black Rose Racing. Teammates have grouped together, so it'll be interesting to see how they strategize and work together.
Yeah, and part of going back to what you said earlier, Hardy, about how they're running single file now, I think part of that is, in fact, that they've had that big crash and everybody kind of got a reality check very quickly. But what I'm wondering, and Tyler might agree, or Parker might agree with me on this, is the fact that they were really grouped up on the start. There's no choice. You start side by side. And I think that really contributed to the wreck. I don't know that it was so much over anxiety at the beginning of the race, but just the fact that everybody was under a blanket and there just seemingly was nowhere to go.
Yeah, it got real tight there in the beginning of the race, that's for sure. Especially when you're all grouped up and having to really accelerate all the way up or as close to race speed as you possibly can in that little area for the restart zone there. So as we can see, Regis there doing his best Clayton Hardy impression here at Texas. But yeah, it definitely bunched everybody up. And when you bunch everybody up, especially with these cars, though they are stronger than a typical open wheel car, it doesn't take much to unsettle one. And you can see how disaster can occur from that. Oh, man, on the front stretch there.
Yeah, we got one car on the wall, maybe more. That's a bad place for a spinner, I believe. I don't know. I don't think the caution's out yet.
It's
Still
not.
green. Did he hang
Wow,
on to that
talk
thing?
about it. Keely
Wow.
Zappa held on.
What
What
a
a-
save! Maybe I hope we maybe get a replay of what happened there. I'm not sure if they banged wheels together or what, but contact
That was
to the
up
wall.
front,
but-
too.
Yeah, that
See
was
how
right
much-
in the middle of the pack.
It gave Kovacevic some time to check up there. You see her behind Regis, and you mentioned that Regis is doing a Clayton Hardy impression. I can testify wholeheartedly. I do not have the guts to do that here. Do not. 220 miles an hour? No, sir. I'll park it. Thanks.
And that's why you're in the booth with us now. So we can. That's the difference. But right now you can see Kovacevic making the move to the bottom of Mateus Michelin. That is the 31 car right now, and you can see this gaggle behind. Not the best of back markers right now is Regis.
No, not the best of back markers, but he is holding at least somewhat of a decent pace. He's not out there acting like a moving chicane, so he will get some of the respect of some of the drivers out there for at least trying to keep race competitive speeds out there if he is just going to try and salvage points.
And something worth noting here is that 31 car is Stefan Montana. That's a name that we've been hearing for a long time if you've been following the IndyCar series. And it's worth noting his sole race win came on a track like this. It came at Homestead. And we keep saying, you know, if you watch stock car racing or something, you say, well, Homestead and Texas are nothing alike. They're totally different. But the way this package works, they're kind of similar in the fact that it's big pack racing, stuff like this, 3 wide, and sketchy moments, and a lot of drafting and side drafting and placing the car in the right spot. And there's a reason that 31 is up front now and is just taking the lead, because he knows his way around these super speedways.
Yeah, this style of racing. I mean, yeah, the tracks themselves are going to be differently. The way the tires wear will be different. The tire pressures needed, the downforce needed will be different. You think about Texas, how different 1 and 2 is from 3 and 4 as far as the corners go, whereas Homestead, it's equal between all 4 corners. But the concept and the package has an identical base. Everyone starts from the same base, and they just adjust through the week. Montana, who's obviously got experience, be successful, he's going to thrive. I think he's one of those drivers that thrives on chaos. And you see Regis without a rear wing. I'm assuming part of why he's off pace is simply because a lot of the stability on that car is gone. You see the damage as it is. You've lost stability with.
There was also probably suspension damage as well and floor damage. There's a lot more than just the wing being taken off at this point.
Yeah, as I was referring to, like the rear wing's gone, obviously the suspension damage, the side pods are damaged, and that's where a good portion of the stability comes from, is directing the air over the rear wheels, and that's gone now because of the damage. And nice view from underneath the press boxes where we're at.
Yeah.
But yeah, Regis has got a hands full right now. I mean, if he can tune it over the rest of the race and essentially use this as a test session, I'll be impressed to see what he comes up with, because it's not easy. You're set up to be super sore, and it's not a cold day. It's pretty hot, so you're gonna be fatigued dramatically.
But it's always entertaining to watch when somebody does that because it's something that you don't see very often in any open wheel, sort of discipline. It's something that seems rather unique to this series, and it's always entertaining. It's now 3 years in a row that somebody's tried it, and throughout the season, and it's very fun to watch them wheel the car around, and it's kind of hilarious to say, yeah, you can drive these cars with all this downforce on that rear wing. You can take that rear wing off and still manage relatively well. And something worth noting is these drivers are incredibly talented to be able to do that because you're essentially turning an airplane that's stuck to the ground and then turning it into a drift car at 200 miles an hour if you aren't careful. So it takes a lot of guts, as you mentioned, that you don't have to to get around this track without a rear wing, especially one as daunting as Texas.
And Clayton, you also brought up a really good point, is the fact that what data is Regis going to generate from this? We also have to think about, this is one of the last tune-up races before the big one, the 500, which is going to be coming up here very quickly, in about 2 weeks' time, if I'm not mistaken. This is going to be, your last chance to really get yourself together, get the team going on a high swing, and sort of operating at their optimum level to try and win the biggest prize in the NAMRA Vodafone IndyCar Series calendar, basically.
Yeah, there is definitely there's definitely data Regis can gather, because we saw it last year with Ray Taylor because he ran without a rear wing, and their teammates this year, Regis and Taylor. So the data you can gather will help you tremendously as far as continuing your race in Indianapolis should you be involved in an accident, and chances are you will. That's just the way of life in Indianapolis. Being able to continue your race and fight for those points, which for Regis, being down in the order and point, each position is super crucial right now for him. So, yeah, he's going to want to stick into this race. He's going to want to stick in Indianapolis because it's vital for him to get back into the top 24, and he's not there right now.
So we got a change for the lead. Jamie Nuri-Jardine, your reigning 3-time shootout winner. Remember the shootout this year taking place at Homestead as they go 3 wide. Aaron van der Linden, he was pulling that stuff at the shootout as well. I don't know what's into these Eiffel Tower cars on the super speedways, but they've got something, and they are bringing it to the table today. And that is a great pass by Nuri-Jardine and a bold move from van der Linden. And all of a sudden, Stefan Montana is confused on what even happened. He was first about a half a lap ago, and now he's back all the way down in 4th.
And you could definitely tell how the arrow on the front of van der Linden's car just got lifted off, and as he was going into turn 1 trying to make that pass on Regis, he was just a wiggling something fierce on the front end. Had a lot of understeer coming into that car. Washed him up a little bit, but he caught it, which was a great job by him. But yeah, Nas, honestly, it might be too that some of these guys' tires are falling off. We're 40 laps into this race. How long are these Pirelli red walls going to last?
Yeah, you're right, and it's worth noting not really anybody pit that was not involved in that accident after the second lap because, well, it was the second lap. Nobody wanted to pit yet. The tires were still good. They're, in fact, warmed up, and that's why we had a nice restart because nobody was on cold tires at that point. I think you're definitely right about that. I think the tires are wearing out a little bit. We saw cars that were running the outside earlier now starting to make their way up through the field a little more than those cars that were running the bottom, but Nuri-Jardine has just taken off almost a full second over van der Linden, who's now moved up into second. So right now it's an ETR 1-2, and van der Linden's only win came at Motegi. Not really a super speedway by any stretch of the imagination, but it looks like now between this and Homestead, he's really picking up a knack for those sort of tracks.
Yeah, and you're talking about Eiffel Tower with the 1-2, Alpine with a 1-2-3, Kovalkiewicz, which has the same power plant as Eiffel Tower. It's a customer team for Alpine. Also sitting really comfy in 3rd. So Alpine, I guess the theme of the season so far has been Alpine OP, please nerf. Because you've got Nuri-Jardine, who won Sonoma. Ishibashi won at home in Motegi. And then you think about, I think 4 out of the 6 races, the pole sitter's been Alpine, and there's been 9 podium finishers with Alpine power. So Alpine's definitely super strong. And you mentioned Van der Linden winning at Motegi and starting to pick up the super speedway thing and the pack racing thing. It helps when you've got a team that has a star caliber driver, and Nuri Jardine has an absolutely brave driver like Van der Linden and Crane, who I think is probably one of the most underrated all-rounders right now in the grid, because she's sitting 9th, and she's never raced here before. So Eiffel Tower definitely has a strong package, and I think once Van der Linden's got himself used to it and he's got teammates he can rely on and he's not having to teach someone, Van der Linden's quite a threat. He's been unlucky, but he's quite a threat when he's got it going for him.
Oh, absolutely. And it's worth noting that back when Van der Linden was in that 27 car running partial schedule, I believe at that time, he really he wasn't in the old 27 car, worth noting. He just wasn't really in a top tier team. He was, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, it was an independent entry, was it not? I mean, he was in a mid-tier team doing very well for what he had now, as we see the leaders catching lap traffic. And look at him now. He's running second place. And the way that ETR has been going, both Nuri Jardine and Crane has a points win. Nuri Jardine won at a super speedway already in the shootout. And Van der Linden, his time will come eventually. He's going to get a win, it looks like, because this ETR team has really kicked off in about the past year.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about Van der Linden when in 2016, his 2016 season, mid-tier team, underfunded because that was supposed to be a 2-car effort, and then the funding for that second car fell apart, so they bought the parts and then couldn't use it. So they were underfunded and in debt. They had small staff, and he somehow still pulled off a win at Motegi. It's not even a fluke win.
No,
like, he was a dominant factor at Motegi, and that was round 2. It just he didn't have the material behind him to further develop it. And you noticed how at the later parts of the season, after everyone had kind of figured out the package, he was still lagging behind. And so now that's not on his shoulders. He doesn't have to worry about that. He's on arguably a AAA team. He's in a top tier team. I'm willing to consider Eiffel Tower a top tier team. Top tier engine equipment with Alpine, arguably class of the future. That pressure's off of him, and you're seeing him take a more relaxed approach. And I think that's where you find most of your best racing, your best quality racing for any driver, is when you're more relaxed, you're more composed. What's he got to stress about? Yeah, he's had bad luck. Got I guess screwed over by safety car at Motegi. Got screwed over by safety car at Phoenix. Got taken out on lap 1 crash at Sonoma, which wasn't his fault. I mean, bad luck happens, and I think he's doing a great job right now of just clearing his head and saying, okay, you know what, Texas leading to Indianapolis, this is where it changes.
Yeah, and he's going to be a serious contender. And we saw earlier that 96 Coca-Cola. I believe you're right, Parker, about what you said about the tires, because we saw how hard that car was pushing early on, and you can just see it consistently slipping more and more. I think you hit the nail on the head about the tires, because now we're a good 53 laps into the run. Only about 5 or 6 of those were under caution speed. I think that is exactly what's happening now, is because we see those ETR cars with a little bit of help from lap traffic. They weren't super up in the front, being super racy early on, but now they've extended almost 3 seconds back to the 31 of Montana. But even so, the tires are falling off at this point. But I think more so on those cars that were pushing early.
Yeah, I could agree on that. And we're starting to see the drivers who are a little bit better on their tires actually start to get through the field. If we take a look at it, we have Christine Espinoza, definitely a lady who knows how to hustle an IndyCar around any track, it seems like, out there. She's up there in 5th. We have the hometown kid of Cameron Jackson from Dallas, Texas here. He's up in 6th. we have Andrew Draco, who's been able to inch his way back up to the front, sitting there in 7th. And look at who's sitting in number 8. That's Sakura Ishibashi, all the way from 33rd to 8th, which is a great job. And then sitting there in 9th also, the man who had the quietest day at the shootout, but had probably one of the biggest results outside of Jamie Jardine, Barris Windross, sitting there in 9th. And then we have the 18 car of Kinumichi Kinoshita.
Kunimitsu Kinoshita will help you with that one. A
right.
household name in the IndyCar series.
Yeah. I'm glad you pointed out Cameron Jackson, by the way, him being the hometown hero. That's why he's got the Vodafone onboard cam. We never got to that, by the way. Experimental by Vodafone. Select races this year, hopefully for wide-scale implementation next year. Certain races you'll be able to use a helmet cam. You'll be able to view a helmet cam from a particular driver for that event. That driver will have a helmet. The camera will be inside the helmet, but it'll be underneath the visor. So almost where like where the mouthpiece would be, where the microphone would be. Kind of running it through its experimental paces, whatever. And it's who better than the hometown driver, Cameron Jackson, who's started 7th, sitting 6th.
Yeah,
not too bad.
No, not at all. He's doing a good job so far. And of course, Cameron Jackson, another one of those quiet drivers. He doesn't really make a whole lot of noise on the racetrack unless he's hitting catch fences in Michigan. But he's typically a very calm, cool, collected driver. He just kind of goes out there and gets the job done. And he's been involved in a lot of accidents, but almost none of them are really his fault. He seems to get very decent finishes. He's a very good all-around driver. He's a little bit underrated, in my opinion. It's good to see him running back up towards the front. He seems to be towards the top 10 often in these super speedway races. But Parker pointed out, Barris Windross. I think he's the ultimate quiet driver here. This guy's got 5 podiums from 2016. He won 1 race at Road America, but you almost never talk about him. He just ends up there at the end. Or in the beginning, he just sort of hangs around. He's very, very quiet. Some people, you say some of the drivers that are rookies here, you'd hear the name Barris Windross, go, who's that? Is he in the Lights series? He's not very much talked about, and I think it's extremely, criminal that that's not more of a case where we talk about him, because he's a very good driver.
Yeah, Windross, a stellar driver. He's consistent, which you look for. I think I definitely agree with you with him being underrated, and him taking a year off last year, only racing 5 races last year, I think might have hurt him more than helped. But you think about Cameron Jackson last year, 4 podiums. He's got 6 podiums total, 2 from 2016 and 4 from last year, including Kentucky, which is a similar track to what Texas is. Cameron Jackson, I would say, arguably one of the most underrated drivers in the series, period. He hasn't won a race yet, but his rate of improvement from 2016 to 2017 was astronomical. Being able to race with him, always a gentlemanly racer. He's going to give you space. And that's kind of what makes it more unfortunate when he's involved in crashes, is because he's trying his best just to give you space. You know what? If you're gonna go for it, take it. And you got to feel for him. So hopefully he's able to break through. I mean, he's had a good start for this race today. Hopefully it stays that way for him, because he deserves more results like this.
Oh, absolutely. And him being with Cat Devil Racing for as long as he has, if he wasn't a good driver, Cat Devil Racing would not have re-signed him. And that Cat Devil Racing will easily cut out the dead weight if they need to. And Cameron Jackson is just another one of those quiet drivers like Windross. And he has, Jackson has never won a race like you mentioned, but he has 6 podiums. He can get the job done. I think it's sometimes, though, that his patience is so much that he doesn't know when to flip the switch and be aggressive. And honestly, I don't know that he can. He's such a such a calm, cool, collected guy that I don't think he's really capable of really flipping that switch yet. We've seen a little bit more fight out of him when the pressure cranked up. He's definitely done better, like you mentioned. He's evolved over these past couple of years, and it's cool to see that. And I think his first win is definitely sitting somewhere in this year's calendar. Don't know exactly where, but I have a good feeling that he's going to pick up his first career win at some point. Cat Devil Racing, pretty good. The Ferrari engine, very strong in certain aspects. I think he can definitely get the job done.
Sing it with me. What's gonna work? Teamwork. Because 5 seconds, 5.5 seconds is the gap between the Eiffel Tower cars and everyone else. So I guess that strategy we saw last year at Fontana of tandeming up and walking away. That's still a thing, apparently.
Well, yeah, but something we haven't quite seen is the actual physical tandem drafting that we saw last year. That was absolutely insane, and I don't think that it's impossible with this draft package, but I feel like nobody's really felt the need to try something outrageous like that yet because we've seen such good racing, and the overtaking opportunities have been amazing. And, I've seen Parker in the booth next to me there. His eyes are widening as he's watching the mid-pack, and they're still going 2 and 3 wide and making it stick. That's something that we just simply could not do last year. And, Parker, you've been watching this for a long time. Do you think the overtake package could get much better?
It'd be hard pressed to. Maybe if we switched to a little bit lower downforce, perhaps, and got the cars a little more squirrely, put it in the driver's hands. But honestly, it just seems like these cars are just great. Kind of just out of the box. They tend to drive just fine. Honestly, though, in the mid-pack, what's going on, though, is there is a lot of battling. There is a lot of position shuffling going on. That's eating up their tires. What Eiffel Tower Racing is doing right now is they're just out there cruising, keeping a nice gap, about a half second back, giving each other plenty of clean air to let the aero work on the tires to where they're not scrubbing as much, battling and being in dirty air and really having to work the tires and extract the maximum amount of grip out of the tires, letting the aero do the work for them. And that's how they've been able to pull away almost 6 seconds now, which is just crazy for one of these super speedway tracks.
Absolutely. And, something we're seeing now, and I believe it's been happening all race, but, we have a car in the pit lane now. I believe the pit cycles are starting, so I'll hold that thought until later. We have made it 73 laps before the first pit stops under green have started. Now only about 68, 69 of those have been run at race pace, but that's a really long time for the supposedly easier to wear tire. Pirelli as a whole, the durability of their tires have been going up and up, and we've been seeing drivers extend them further and further in other series, and I think that's a trend that's continuing here. Are you disappointed by that at all, guys, to see that the tires are lasting this long, or you think it's more of a good thing? I honestly think that it's pretty cool. I think that it is the softer compound. We get more speed, but I also think that the reason these tires have lasted so long are because these drivers are nursing it, and it really does put a lot of control into the drivers. Like Parker was mentioning, maybe less downforce would make them more squirrely and put it in their hands. You try these tires 70 laps in, they're going to be very squirrely anyways.
Yeah, and I think why they've made them last this long is fuel numbers. I think that's kind of what it boils down to. Make less stops, make those stops more important, and as you said, kind of leave it in the driver's hands instead of risking mistakes on pit lane. Just kind of let the tires go through their age, go through their wear, and then come in when you go to refuel. That gives everyone.
That is the difference between 1 lap old tires and 76 lap old tires. That was absolutely insane. I thought Marie Jardine had a tire go down. I thought she had a problem. But no, that is just the difference in tires. And guys, this could be a massive undercut if they stay out much longer. Marie Jardine, Van der Linden, and basically anybody else who just saw that are screaming on the radio, I need tires now.
Yeah, if I was on the pit box, I'd be definitely thinking, listen, we'll hit a fuel number. We can hit a fuel number later on. We need to come in and get rubber because the amount of time that we're having that delta is going to be insanely large. Get in, get the new rubber, and get back out.
And
Part
I
of
think
what's important there, and I'm sorry for interrupting. Part of what's important there is that's Kaylee Zappa that came in. She's got suspension damage from that hit with the wall that she somehow saved. So she's already off pace. She's already a lap down. She's not a factor to this. Notice how no one else has come in yet. So people are still trying to stretch out the fuel numbers here, especially Vanderlyn. He's in a sweet spot right now. He's been sitting behind Richardine the entire time. He's been lifted. His pit stop's going to be one shorter because he's doing better fuel mileage. But I think it's good that Eiffel Tower is doing this because now they know, okay, if we have to switch the roles at some point, here's what we can do if we need to. Here's what we can do and obviously they're relaying information to all their drivers. Here's Astrid and Jamie are in on it. Here's the numbers that Aaron's meeting. This is what we can do. That's kind of a big deal. This first stint is super important right now.
I really think that Zappa could possibly unlap herself or just put herself in a much better position for later on in the race to possibly get back on the lead lap. Because the longer that they keep these drivers out here, because now they're pushing 80 laps on the tires, suspension damage or not, Zappa's going at least 2 seconds, maybe a little less than that per lap quicker. And now we see some more cars that have made pit stops now. I think Zappa has really just, whether she's relevant to the victory or not, she's relevant to race strategy because now we see more cars coming in and out of the pits.
Yeah, more of the drivers that are in the back will start pitting earlier. There's Jamie. She's pulling in.
Yep. Right now, and I think that's a good call. Aaron Van der Linden's going to stay out and lead a lap, which is going to be good for him. But this is I think still a little bit too late. Obviously, it's not going to be massive repercussions because of the reason of Zappa is laps down, but still, I think as soon as you saw Zappa, if you're Nuri Jardine, I think the moment that you see Zappa go screaming by you with suspension damage and damaged nose cone and side pod damage and all that from smacking a wall, you pit. I think waiting an extra 8 laps or so was a very interesting call, and they're actually going to leave Aaron Van der Linden out more than just 1 lap as well. And there you see Astrid Crane pulling up onto the track there. Wonder here.
Oh, we have a caution.
We do.
That's why.
We have a caution.
That's why.
And I wonder.
See the smoke.
Yeah, Van der Linden. The question now becomes how many laps down did Van der Linden, how many cars did he lap? And another thing worth noting there is very interesting. Van der Linden did not slow down to let Astrid Crane by, something that I thought would have happened since they're teammates, because now Astrid Crane's going to be locked the lap down. That's interesting there, and that's going to throw a wrench into literally everything. Not sure exactly what the caution was for, though. We're hearing reports it had to do with RMU, maybe? And, Van der Linden's in the pit. Oh, it's already open. Wow, very quick pit lane opening there. Van der Linden's into the pits.
It was... I'm trying to see who it was. May have been We'll have to wait and see what the replay shows.
Yeah,
I want to say Lecty was involved.
Now we'll see.
And the real strategy thing right now is who had come into the pits earlier to make that pit stop. Once that pit stop window opens, the earlier you come in, if there is a caution,
no!
Zappa.
Oh, Lecty tried to make it to pit lane, I think. I think she tried to get into pit lane and just, I don't know why. She clearly had missed the pit entry line. I'm not sure what had happened there, and correction on my part there. I don't know, because I think that she was slowing down and she saw that slow car and they all tried to avoid, and she just kind of hooked like she thought she could make it. I don't know. And correction on the Haramiu, he was just slowing down to avoid the debris that had been scattered there.
And was that slower car? Was that Kaylee Zappa?
Zappa was the faster car that ran into Lecty. Zappa was the 17, the pure white GoPro car. May have been Michelin in front of her, though. May have been.
I think that might have been the case, because Michelin was a bit off pace ever since he went MotoGP down the front stretch. But it looks like everybody's going to get lined up now. coming out of the pit lane. Now the question really is now how many cars are on the lead lap, how many cars are a lap down? We won't really have a real answer until timing and scoring sorts itself. Astrid Crane leading the field, but not on the lead lap. I think this is one of those interesting scenarios where a bunch of lap traffic ends up in front of the leader. You can see a lot of them here because these are the cars at a pit. And there's Van der Linden there, I believe, in front. This is just a bit of a mess between lead lap and not lead lap cars right now.
And what I was saying earlier, though, is the earlier you come in on that pit window and then you get a yellow, the better off you are going to be, though, strategy-wise, though. You've made your pit stop. Now, everybody else who hasn't, you'll gain all that track position when they have to come in and make that pit stop under yellow.
And that's the risk you take, I think, because, you know, if you can put them a lap down, that puts you in the advantage because then you can trap cars a lap down like we see here. Technically, only 18 cars are on the lead lap. Several of them are all but a lap down. So this really makes things a bit interesting because of exactly that reason. You stay out, and the longer you stay out, the more you kill your tires, the further back you're going to be when you eventually do pit. But if you do catch that caution flag, you set yourself up in a really good position because even if you do have to take the pit stop and you lose that track position, you've lapped effectively half of the field. However, if you can't lap all of the field or the caution comes out immediately, then you're going to be at the back of the pack. Then you're going to lose your track position. You'll have about a lap fresher tires, but that doesn't really mean a whole lot of difference. It's always a gamble because you never know what's going to happen, and it's a bummer for a bunch of these guys that are now trapped a lap down, but anything's possible when Aaron van der Linden has all of these lap cars in front of him, and also, by the way, has that 3 car which started in the back, Sakura Ishibashi, now all the way up on the gearbox of the leader. So we're going to have a lapped car race. It's almost multi-class at this point between lapped cars and not lapped cars.
Yeah, and that's definitely why I would have come in earlier to grab those tires, get that Delta built back up, and hopefully get ahead of these guys so you could have had a clean hole shot when the pace car pulls off. But
we'll find out what happens here. Pace car is pulling off.
It's going to be a dangerous game to play, though. If you're the leader and you're stuck behind all these cars that are going to fight you tooth and nail to keep their lap, because if their caution comes out, you know how it is with cautions breed cautions. If a caution comes out, these guys are back in it.
Absolutely, and the green flag is out, and right now all of them in front of van der Linden are in it to win it. Remember, these cars are lapped down because of pit cycle. They don't have crash damage like the first couple cars we saw get past, so this is all fair game. In fact, a couple of these cars are actually quicker than van der Linden. One of them right in front of him now. They're 3 wide in front of the leader, Ishibashi, on the bottom, right in the middle of all the other lap cars. Sketchy game to play. 3 wide through the dog leg, but give Ishibashi the lead. Caution's out. The caution waves, and this is exactly why they were racing so hard. You see van der Linden go underneath the Jardine, but it doesn't matter right now because Ishibashi's the one to watch. We got a car down the front stretch run out of pace, and now they're slowing down to turn 3. I believe they caught the caution before they got to the line. So, yeah, they have. The pace car is out and has picked up a couple of cars here, so we'll see what we can get. Lots of smoke down the backstretch, but simultaneously there was an issue with one of the Vodafone cars. I believe it was the 2 of Rogers.
Rogers isn't in this field. Never mind, he is in this field. Never mind, yeah. I was wrong earlier. I thought Andrew Mosey was in this field. And he's in the top 10.
Running 9th now, so I don't know if that was him. Maybe he was just reacting to the caution before everybody else did, or maybe he had a problem. Or maybe it was it Cameron Jackson that was out of control? One of the red cars were out of control. They were coming through the dog leg.
These teams don't make it easy on us. All these red cars, all these black cars.
White cars.
I thought it was Sakura Ishibashi who was passing van der Linden and then checked up real quick. And then I'm not sure why van der Linden's behind her, but that's how timing and scoring has sorted it out. Van
der Linden was second when they crossed the line, so he had to give the position back before the pit lane opened.
Yeah,
that was a bang caution, man.
You called it exactly though. Cautions breed cautions, and if you've ever wondered why on earth are these lap cars racing the leaders so hard, This is exactly why. It doesn't always happen, but when it does, it definitely sets things up for success because all those cars that were in front of the leaders back on the lead lap, they're going to be back in the race, and they're going to have another shot at taking the victory here. So that is big, big, big for everybody that was in front of Ishibashi.
It sucks though if you're still a lap down. Kovalevich is still a lap down. Crane's still a lap down. It sucks if you're those two because obviously two of the more competitive cars not competing for the race lead at this point. But Jamie Newey-Jardine, arguably the fastest person on track, period, is back on the lead lap. So there's a lot of drivers now that have a second chance.
Are you sure that Kovalevich is a lap down? Because the timing and scoring is showing her in 9th right now.
She was a lap down when the field restarted. So I don't know.
We'll have to wait and see, try and figure things out here because it is hard to follow the timing and scoring when something like this does happen. We've got cars starting in front of the leaders and cars that are a lap down and cars that are on the. It's just a big mess.
This is why I was the driver. This is why you and Tyler get to deal with the analytics. I just drove the cars. I wasn't great at it, but that was probably my best feature. So,
well, I never drove Indy cars. I manhandled 3,400-pound stock cars around this place, but IndyCar.
I made my career out of driving Indy cars and sitting behind lap traffic for like 50 laps.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I won races.
I'm up here scratching my head asking what happened to the Aaron's lucky dog and the green-white checkers. So it's a catch-22. Regis is still there a lap down on the bottom, and you're right about Crane, but I'm pretty sure Kovalevich is on the lead lap because she still scored in 9th, and she's no longer on that bottom line.
Right.
So I believe
my fantasy pick's still intact. Good. See, Parker, this is why we need you. You need to hold us together here.
Pace car
I'll do what I can. I'm trying to figure it out myself, but yeah, definitely no blue flag in this series. That's for sure.
Oh
and,
no!
No.
They definitely let you race the leaders, which has its advantages and disadvantages. But Nass, you want to take the call?
Yeah, the pace car will take the hard left again. We'll see if we can get more green flag laps in than the last attempt. It's in the air now, and the number 3 will lead us down with the 27 of Vander Linden on the tail. And as Ishibashi rolls off into turn number 1, we'll see the fields kind of string out behind him as they work the lap traffic, and Regis just being an absolute roadblock at the moment. Not much of a moving chicane as we saw from Kinomitsu Kenosha, who is conveniently now behind Regis, as I mentioned that. The speed difference not as extreme as what we saw back at Homestead, but I don't like this side-by-side nose-to-tail again already. I think they probably learned their lesson.
Well, there's not much which way. Michelin's on the bottom and Regis is on the top, so there wasn't much they could do until they moved one of them up.
I'm just glad they didn't make a third lane.
Also, something I want to point out. Sorry, something I want to point out just real quick. Something that caught my eye. They didn't consider that last restart an attempt because that was this last restart was considered the second restart, not the third. Interesting thing to note. Is there a rule that was added for that? Because it's almost as if that second restart didn't count for anything.
I believe it may have been because the fact that they never made it back around the line. Obviously, the laps still counted, and the drivers got their laps back. So maybe they felt that something was wrong there. I'm not too sure. As we go 3 wide in front of Lechty here, I'm not too sure. I think it may have just been an issue there. We saw smoke in turn 3, so I'm not too sure. Somebody gone around, and that's what brought out the caution. So it wasn't a factor of, there was an accident, or there was a race control said we need to fix the standings because there was smoke down the back. So I'm not too sure about that. But Parker, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say too. I think this nose to tail 3 wide stuff too. people are getting rather racy, especially off of this restart, because everybody's got new skins on. This rubber, as we've known in the beginning of the race, you can make some dicey moves out there and gain some positions if you're willing to sort of risk it with the new tires. But in the end, they will fall off and bite you if you don't come in early enough to switch them out.
Well, what I was wondering was the fact that, you've just had two pretty sizable accidents already today, and we've just had that caution come out, and then another caution come out, and then they're immediately going back to 2 and 3 wide. What we saw after the first crash of the day is everybody kind of calmed down and ran single file, which, while not as entertaining, is a bit more sensible for early on. Maybe it's sort of this sort of mindset that we've seen before at the 600-mile races, where these guys are so used to running 300 and 500-mile races. To throw a 600 in there, their internal clock is saying you got to race more now, even though they're not even to halfway.
Well, I also think it has to deal with the fact that if what we saw from the first 80 laps is true, though you can move up the field, it seems to be a little bit tougher once these tires fall off. So you need to really capitalize on the fact that you have that fresh grip, that extra grip, to really move past cars and make the most of a situation. What better situation when you're all bunched up during a caution? I tell you what, if I was a driver out there, that's what I would do.
Yeah, and go ahead.
It helps that it's 600 kilometers and not miles, so there's not as much time. Whereas 600 miles would be 400 laps, and we'd be here until maybe Christmas. That's not fun. 600 kilometers, not as much time, about 350 miles, so it's just a little longer than what we had at Moto. But yeah, it is get up and go time. And everyone, after two quick cautions, you sat under 60 miles an hour for 8 laps, which is about 10 minutes. You get antsy, and you know you've got the fresh tires, and you know that strategy-wise, you know what you're aiming for. You start jumping a little bit, and as Tyler said, Tommy, sorry, as Parker said, you see an advantage, you see an opportunity to be able to jump positions, you go for it. It just, everyone's going for it. So now that you see that the front runners are back to the front, hopefully status quo continues. But who knows? We're getting close to the second half of the race. Driver mentality is starting to switch to, okay, I can't sit back anymore. I know the race engineer is saying, meet this number, but I got a race to worry about. I've got positions to climb here. And if I sit back here too often much, I'm not going to get anything done.
It's worth noting that we have had a lead change there. Ray Taylor has taken the lead, and he has won. One of his 2 race wins came at Fontana, another track like this, as we mentioned before, and taking that lead, pretty textbook pass, but he's brought the rest of the pack with him here. RMU in 3rd, and you see the 48 of Christine Espinoza sitting there as well. She's a 4-time Indy 500 champion. She knows her way around these tracks that are big and fast, so she is looking. Now it looks like they're all going to move Ishibashi to the top of the track and try and scoot on by, and Ishibashi will fall from originally what was 1st to 2nd, and now back to 4th, and maybe even 5th if Van der Linden gets brave enough. And also worth noting that the number 9 of Michael White, who had that awesome avoidance while we were running the onboards of that first lap crash, has moved his way into the top 10. Bringing with him Jamie Marie Jardine after being a lap down has come back and into the top 10. She's looking to make progress once again. And worth noting, Patrick Marcelli is out front again as well. They come down the back straight.
Not sure where you're seeing Marie Jardine. I see Coast Montero.
I believe she poked her nose up there a minute ago. She's been bumped out now. But yeah, Costa Montero is in 9th right now.
It's so confusing because you've got Costa Montero and Marie Jardine, both are in orange and black cars, and they've just got, if you're dyslexic, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, it definitely
We need to set up a petition. Every car needs to be dramatically different from each other. We have so many solid yellow cars, so many solid white cars. Make it different, please.
I think we just need glasses, Hardy.
I've
Well,
got
it'd be
glasses.
nice.
That's the problem.
It'd be nice if what happened is what they did with sports cars, where they were able to integrate some sort of LED or something to where you could light it up and actually see the number, or light it up a different color so you could actually differentiate between the two drivers at a fair distance.
Yeah, I think that would help now as we see Aramu make a big move there, moving to the front of the field, now to the bottom of the track to get by Regis, and I believe that's Mateus Michelin as well.
That hurt. You saw the momentum that he had. He dropped it all when he moved lanes mid-corner.
But
that
still,
air,
it worked out, though, because now he's underneath Michelin, and I believe now that's going to shuffle Taylor way out of this group here. He's going to be falling. He's still falling back. Ishibashi's gone by. Costa Montero's gone by. They are rushing by. Now Vander Linden is going to try and get an attempt in there as well with Michael White there trying to make the move, but Taylor was having none of it. Cuts the nose of the 9 off, and on by the lap traffic they go. There's the 9 car with help behind of Kovacevic, I believe, and then now you can see the rest of the field behind as well, and they are all stuck behind Mateus Michelin.
what a wonderful back marker.
He's trying his best to get out of the way. You can see him trying to move high, but the track's so rubbered in now. If you go to the top of the track, all you're going to do is put it in the wall, and you're already off the pace.
Oh, yeah.
And there's only so much you can do. It's not so much of a scenario like it was at Homestead where every lane was a viable lane. It's not so much like that. You have two choices. One of them is hit the apron, the other one's hit the marbles and eventually the wall. So you're still running your own race, even if you are laps down, as we have another lead change here. Espinoza on Aramu.
Well, time to turn the TV off now.
I don't think we're done. We're not done.
No, definitely not. This is pack racing.
Well, I will say this. Christine has had a penchant this year to just sort of get up front when it counts and just run away.
Yeah,
I
but
wouldn't say that yet. It's not 20 to go.
But the thing about this is that we have seen cars run away already today. We've seen the ETR cars hook up and walk away to a 6-second lead. I think it's going to really depend on how much RMU is willing to play it conservative here and save the tires a little bit. Maybe the 7 car, maybe Marcelli not having it, but we'll have to wait and see. Right now it's kind of a waiting game because now that everything's shuffled out, they need to get back lined up. It's sort of a sitting duck principle until it's not. And I know that doesn't make much sense, but the more that the tire wear goes on, the more that you can kind of walk away with a lead, even with all that draft, because everybody's struggling to keep those tires under control. Right now, it doesn't look like she's going anywhere, though. Jaramillo with the push, the arrow push from Marcelli, they're riding right on the tail.
No,
a
and I
good
think
part of this is.
I was going to say, I think one of the better strategies is to actually use the maximum amount of grip you can out of the tires to build up some sort of a lead, to where once you've run your tires as far as you can, you've built up a substantial lead, like the ETR cars were doing, to where the drop-off doesn't seem to affect them as much. You drive away from your opponents, you're not necessarily going to lose as much because their tires are going to be falling off at either the same pace or even a more rapid pace than what yours are.
Yeah, and another thing to note with that is that you have that arrow push, and that puts a lot of extra stress on those front tires when you're trying to cut the car and keep it in line. And we were noticing with those ETR cars when they pulled away out of the gap a little bit, we saw Vander Linden kind of riding a little bit higher than Nuri Jardine was, trying to stay out of that dirty air. They both can manage their tires a little bit better than when they're running 3 wide, 4 wide in the pack, and they're dealing with all that air also affecting the car. Granted, there's not nearly as much as there was in years past, but it still does have a bit of an effect on these cars.
Part of what's helping right now is that you think back to ETR. Well, they're teammates. The closest teammates we've got is 7th and 10th. That's the Cherokee cars. There's that chemistry is not there because obviously there's no shared goal. It just you're trying to beat each other. And you see Espinoza trying to walk away. Marcelli's not making it easy for Jaramillo to hang on, and that's brought Cos Montero up to him.
And Costa
It's
Montero is
not-
bringing the pack.
Oh yeah, at least two
Well,
of them.
Yeah, 2 or 3 of them, and I think that big line's going to help a little bit if they can stay lined up, as long as they don't try passing each other. Because we know Marcelli's quick, and now that Jaramillo has fallen back, he's going to be faster in that draft, because that's where Jaramillo seems to be doing better. He has a better pack car than he does a leading car. I think that they're going to end up catching up. We'll see what it is this lap. It was 4/10. Now this time it is 3/10. So they are gaining a little bit now because they have lined up.
Yeah, and you see that second group, which is 7th on back. You see where the 2 teammates that I was talking about, they're not in this group, so they're not a threat. It's game on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it is game on, but we're just now nearing the halfway point. So actually, it'll be halfway this time by. So, you look at that and you say, we've got a lot of racing already under our belt. The race went extremely quick so far. It's one of those events where they're going so quickly. They're circulating very fast. They're clicking off laps. It's one of those things where you can almost blink and 10 laps have gone by. And these drivers, we've already seen them push the tires about 80 laps. That seems to be the absolute point of no return, about 80 to 85 laps. So we're expecting them to be pitting again in about 35 or so, a little bit before that, maybe a little after, depending on who pit under those caution periods. But, we're only just now halfway, but we've already got to halfway. And again, that sounds very strange, but when you think about it, doesn't feel like we've been racing for a long time, but we've covered a lot so far. We've had several caution flags. We've had a lot of lead changes. We've gone through half of a green flag cycle of pit stops. It's getting to the point now where you've got your cars figured out. Now what are you going to do to make them even better?
Well, I think what you're going to do is make any sort of final adjustments because, according to calculations, this should be roughly just under a 3-stop race if you can stretch that fuel mileage number. So the next time they should be coming in is roughly around lap 163. You make your final changes. You make your final tire pressure adjustments. You make sure that the car is set up to run its best with that maximum grip that these Pirelli tires are able to sort of give, and you just strap in and drive the car as fast and as well as you can, and try to maximize the new tires that you'll be able to slap on.
Yeah, and I think that we are probably not done yet with the caution flags. The way that things have been going, it seems that there's been crashing under pit stop sequences. And of course, if we get one caution, we'll probably get 2 more. So do you think that it's worth doing that late race pit stop if we have a caution with 5 to go?
It depends, I guess, on what your previous strategy was. If you think you're going to get that late race caution, maybe you pit at the beginning of that pit window. Try to maximize the track position. You won't have the freshest tires on the last caution, but again, you will have that track position. I think the biggest thing is when do you think those cautions are going to fall? If they're going to fall within the last 30 to 45 laps, maybe I come in later then. Try to push that fuel number.
Who is that car? Who was that car that we
was
saw?
Victor Santos.
Santos.
That's not a scheduled stop. That is for something electrical.
Yeah, something's gone wrong with
Maybe one.
Santos, and that's a bummer for him because he was really excited about this race. But we're looking now. I believe that's Cameron Jackson. So
Yeah, it was Victor Santos. It was a dead giveaway because he was in the pit lane. The camera flipped to him twice, and he wasn't on a jack or anything. So there was something wrong with that car. And to kind of throw my 2 cents in as a driver, if a caution comes out with like 10 to go, whatever the leader's doing, I'm doing the opposite. Unless
what if
I'm
you're the leader?
leader.
That's the question.
Well, I was never the leader very often, so I didn't have to worry about it.
Yes, you were. You just sat behind lap traffic because you thought that you weren't the leader, and you were like, well, 5th place is good.
Yeah, that was my first mistake, thinking that Harsk was leader.
I wouldn't put it
Um,
past you.
if
The
if
thing is,
I'm the leader, I always pit. That's kind of how it went. If I was leading and there was a caution within like the last 20 laps, I always came, no matter what. Because places like Texas, we've seen fresh tires versus old tires. The value is immeasurable. So if you're the leader, you tend to pit. If you're not the leader, but you've got teammates, you might play a little bit risky.
But again,
Yeah.
that was with that old compound Pirelli. This new softer Pirelli, we've seen, though it's softer, though it's supposed to produce this big wear off, it doesn't seem like they're handling that, or it's dropping off as much. Although I can't disagree with you. I just think, though, within the last 10 to 15 laps, are they going to be able to make up that time starting at the back of a 15 to 18 car line? Are they going to be able to slice through the field quick enough to get to you?
I think that would depend on what the age gap of the tires are and also how much time is left because and to an extent how much lap traffic is still on that bottom lane on the restart because if we restart with more than about 10 laps to go, those cars will still be there. So I think that's something that's going to have to be weighing on every engineer's mind right now atop the pit box. I think they're all stressful of that and hoping that it does not come to that. And of course, cautions breed cautions. You could have the best car on the racetrack and restart 15th. And there's a wreck in turn 1. There's less than 5 to go. The race is over, and you finish 15th with the first place car. Flip side of that, you stay out on tires. You have the fastest car, but you know you're on 80-lap old tires. There's 5 to go. It goes green to the end, and all of a sudden you're sitting 15th with flat tires. So it's really that's the gamble that I think every race engineer is fearing will happen, and especially on big tracks like this where anybody's day could be a magical one at the last moment. It's never over until they cross the start finish line on tracks like these, and that is something that we'll be watching closely when we get to the closing stage of this race. Something else we're watching is the pole sitter back out front right now, Patrick Marcelli in the number 7, leading the field by a half second over Costa Montero.
Parker, you said what did you say with the next pit stop window would open?
It should, if it's in an 85 lap interval, it should be around lap 163.
Okay, so about 158 to 163. Let's see, 20 laps to go. They'll be on 60. If a caution came out that late, I would assume everyone would pit. I would assume.
Mateus Michelin is just saying, no, I'm pitting now. Of course, he's had damage from earlier, but yeah, I think you're right, though.
I was going to ask, sorry, Clayton, what was that?
I would assume that if caution came out at lap 1, about 228 or something like that, I would assume everyone would pit. Once you get past 40 laps, I would assume that it would just do better if you pit. Obviously, if it's like 5 laps to go and you got a 1-lap shootout, throw it to the wind. Just throw it. See what sticks. But I think 20 laps, if you know you're going to have laps that you can run, I would assume you'd just pit. I would assume.
Yeah, I would agree. I would definitely agree with that assessment also, Clayton. But yeah, with 5 laps to go, I mean, I got to think track position is way more important than new tires for the guys up front.
Remember, they can't pass you if you're using every single lane.
Well, they sure can hook you, though. That's the gamble you take with blocking, but that's another story.
There's no blue flag, but there is a chrome horn.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
And it ends very violently in cars that are open-wheeled, and hopefully we don't see that anytime soon. Although if we ask Mohammed Ahmed, he could tell you about the Bristol excursion, but that's a story for a different time. Right now, Marcelli's still leading as they're 2 wide behind them, and Stefan Montana making his way back up through he's never really left the top of the field, but he's making his way back up through the top 5.
This is the podium right now is a field of misfits. You have Marcelli, who's got 1 podium. You got Costa Montero. Yeah, he got 2 wins last year, but I mean, we don't talk about him. In Montana, who's, I mean, if he qualifies, he's good. It's just he can't qualify. So, pretty interesting top 3, and then you've got 2 really strong drivers behind him, with Espinoza and Ishibashi, obviously championship contenders right now. What a company!
I wouldn't call them misfits, honestly, Hardy. I mean, you look at Costa Montero. You said, yeah, he won 2 races last year and then kind of shrugged it off, but you got to look at the 2 races he won. He won at Kentucky and he won Michigan. Those are 2 ovals, bigger ovals. Kentucky closer to this track than Michigan is, but they're both super speedway type tracks. He knows his way around these sort of racing circuits. In fact, you know, he's always been kind of adept to these sort of races, and that Chevrolet engine, you know, he's carrying the flag recently for Chevrolet on these super speedways. And you look at Patrick Marcelli, I think we've seen him up towards the front, but he's never really made any waves on these sort of tracks. But, you know, he has a podium at Phoenix. He knows his way around ovals. I think he's the biggest surprise out of the 3 that we saw there. But Montana, again, winner on a big racetrack. He's won at Homestead. He knows his way around these high-speed ovals, and he's up front very often. And when it comes to these sort of racetracks. So I don't think they're necessarily misfits at all. I think they're just fitting in perfectly fine with how they seem to do now, as we see Costa Montero take a peek underneath the 7 and then immediately lose all the momentum. I think that's maybe a little bit of tire wear setting in.
Part of the issue. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it could be tire wear, the fact that he's now realized that Christine Espinoza is right behind him and saying, "Excuse me, I'd like to get to the front as well."
Yeah, I think, look at him holding up that whole group, though, now. He's about a half a lane up the racetrack. You think maybe he's having a problem?
I think the only problem he's necessarily had is he tried to, I alluded to this earlier, when, trying to think who was inside of Ray Taylor when they tried passing lap cars. I'm trying to think. There was a car earlier that went to adjust lanes suddenly and lost all momentum. I think it was Jaramillo. And I think that's what Costa Montero did. In that, obviously that's going to wear tires more because you're making a sudden move mid-corner. It's going to slide. Possibly threw the balance off. And now he's got, obviously you've got Espinoza on your outside now, so you're kind of screwed. Well, that's actually Montana's. Never, he's not screwed. But for a while, he had cars right behind him, so he was never able to really get that balance back until he was able to finally break away. He was able to get back on the back straight, kind of figure his way out. Obviously, you've got adjustments in the car. You got your weight jacker and your brake balance. But that's not immediate feeling. So it took him a couple laps to be like, okay, that didn't work. What do I do now? And obviously now it's starting to solve itself back out because he's back up to Marcelli. But those couple laps, those are tense laps because you don't know what's wrong.
Yeah, and on top of that, Montana picked off Espinoza and is now back into third. So the band of not so misfits are once again 1, 2, 3, and it looks like Montana's going to second now. He's going underneath Costa Montero, and try as he might, he just can't hold on to second place this time. Montana's a little quicker. I think Espinoza may have been holding back a little bit, trying not to cause an accident. Montana being a little bit aggressive now, and I think that's what you got to do on these super speedways sometimes. And now the hunt is on as he tries to hunt down the pole sitter.
It's definitely, I was going to say, definitely solid performance for these guys. I mean, staying their misfits doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad at these tracks. It just, they're not consistently up there. You think about Kentucky and Kansas, Texas, your super speedways, Michigan, Fontana. It's a roulette. So these guys are traditionally, they've got stats to back them up. It just, they're not always up there. They're not the people we always talk about. You talk about Ray Taylor, who was good. He's always been good. Michael White, always been good. Marcelli has never been good at this track. his only podium came at Calder Park, which is closer to being a Phoenix type track. It's a shorter oval. Obviously, goes Montero. Yeah, he's won 2 ovals. Okay, I'll eat crow on that one. Montana. And
As
see,
we have
whoa,
Marcelli
pit
coming into the
stops.
pit.
And he brings Montana with him.
About 158, about 80 laps.
Yeah, I think you were
Just about.
about right on the nose there, Parker. Maybe a little overestimated of how long they were going to push it, but yeah, you're pretty close. Not bad at all. You see there is that there's a white and blue car coming out of the pit lane there behind them, and yeah, this is definitely scheduled cycles here.
Because there's Ishibashi coming behind, and Kuni Kinoshita coming in for her stop there.
And very much going to be par for course here. Now, what we got to be watching out for is hoping that they can get through this cycle a little bit cleaner. Remember last time we had a big... Oh, wow. It looks like Montana backed off there, but he had a much better run down the pit lane. It looked like he had a faster stop all around. I think if that was a little closer to the end of the race, I don't think we would have seen that 31 let off the gas quite as easily there. Come down, merging out of back straightaway.
Something I'll also explain. Being on the apron, coming out of pit lane, the scariest experience ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you've got cars going about 210, 215, 220 miles an hour, and you're sitting here like, this is the really dirty part of the track. I'm on cold tires. This is about to be really, really bad if I just ease into the throttle just a little bit. I'm in the wall now. The
and there's no
outside
banking.
wall.
There's no banking down there either, or at least very, very little banking, so you don't have that, that sort of downforce acting to its fullest extent, because you have the downforce set up to work on the banking, and it's not doing everything that it can be right now, and that's why obviously the cars run slower down there. But on top of that, you mentioned the dirty bit of the track. Not only is it dirty, but nobody runs down there. There could be debris there even. It's very sketchy. And with these cars, no traction control, no power steering, it's very, very dangerous, very quick. And you can see here as they caught lap traffic, Ashton Crane and Matthias Michelin. Who's going to pick the right lane? It looks like it's going to be Montana, who goes to the bottom. Matthias Michelin holding up the field a little bit here, and now Marcelli gets by. Cameron Jackson currently scored your leader as they cycle through pit stops. Barris Windross right behind, and there's Marie Jardine now in second as they cycle their way through. This will eventually work its way out to Montana and Marcelli. So we'll wait and see if they can finish. That's if they finish the cycle. So they gotta get through this under green first before that'll happen. You see, I believe that was Jackson coming out of the pit lane there.
And let's give a hand to the hometown boy for leading a lap at his home track. Great
Yep.
job, Cameron Jackson.
I'm sure they'll take a picture of it, frame it, and give it to him after the race. But no, he's been doing great today.
Yes, he has.
So there's Nari Jardine, currently scored your leader. She was the leader earlier, but then the pit stops got her, the caution in between the pit stop cycles got her all out of whack. So now she's staying out as long as she can to try and counteract that. So maybe it'll fall into her favor now. Who knows? There's a bit of a gaggle there. Is that Kovacevic, I believe, trying to go underneath Crane, and she's being scored in fourth. Kovacevic is.
And the funny thing is that when I was walking around the paddock earlier today, I saw somebody walking around with a $3 million lady T-shirt on, referencing Jamie Nari Jardine, our shootout winner this year for the third straight year.
Oh yeah, she pushed the heck out of the marketing on that, and that's a feat in itself, especially when you consider that the tracks have been changing every year for that venue, and a lot of the drivers in the paddock have been voicing how much they actually kind of like that, how it's a continuously rotating venue versus always at the same track. It makes things interesting, and it makes Marie Jardine's feat even more impressive. So that's something she's carried around with a lot of pride, and I wouldn't be surprised knowing her if she's going to end up wearing one of those herself around the paddock, because it's a very impressive thing to do, to win at those 3 different tracks of 3 different types. You go from Bristol to Las Vegas to Homestead. Totally different racetracks all around. Of course, Vegas and Homestead kind of race similarly, but other than that, they're very different, and interesting to see that happen. And I think that's definitely a nice tagline there. But yeah, I think that's a big boost to her spirits as well, of course. And now she's rolled in and won Sonoma. She's leading here. She's as strong as she's ever been.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how she does. Obviously, with the split next year, it'll be interesting to see where she lands. If she stays here, obviously, Monster Shootout next year will be at Memphis, which is a completely different track than the previous three. So, it's just interesting. Obviously, a driver like her is extremely important because she's won on such a wide spectrum. Ovals, like the short ovals, the road courses, the street circuits. She's won everything. At least she's won at everything. Not many people can say they do that. And right now for Eiffel Tower, she is a super hot commodity.
Well, I mean, she's just lost the lead now, of course, due to the shuffling around, but she's still hanging in there. And I think you're absolutely right. But you look at Eiffel Tower, they played their cards all wrong last year. They picked up Harsk on a whim, and Sebastian Devereaux really just wasn't pulling things in. He did eventually get a career win. He announced halfway through the season he was retiring and handing his ride over for most of the season. He wasn't even going to run the full season anymore. Saw talent in Astrid Crane, gave her his ride, but not before picking up that one win, which was a great one for it was a popular win in the series because of how Devereaux was relatively light throughout the paddock, and now he's a full-time owner. I think he absolutely played the cards right this year, picking up Van der Linden, who's proven his talent before. I think that was the biggest gamble, because Van der Linden, we obviously his win wasn't a fluke, but we just didn't know how it was going to be after taking that full year off. Took a chance on him, picked up Astrid Crane halfway through last season, liked what he saw, gave her the full ride for 2018, and then picked up Jamie Neri-Jardine, who I think is their star player, quote unquote, right now. So I think they've absolutely played the cards right this year.
Yeah, we're looking at Marcelli right now. He's kind of. This seems like the 3/10 gap is kind of the golden rule right now. That seems to be what the leader keeps second place at most of the time. So that's kind of an interesting thing I've started to notice is that 3/10 might be the distance between the dirty air. Like, how much does it affect? And it seems to be that gap in particular.
Well, I know that you were walking around in the pit lane when Parker and I were commentating for the Showdown and Shootout, and you were giving us all that info down there. I know it might have been hard to see this, but it's not too much bigger than the gap that we were seeing at Homestead. And Parker, what I'm wondering is, we already mentioned earlier the tires are different, but it seems now that this aero package is starting to get itself sorted out for these big ovals. It's very hard to pull away, but when you do, it seems like you get this bubble created, and they can't really get more than about quarter second, 3/10 in on you.
Yeah, that's true. Definitely this aero package is what's affecting that. But again, it's all going to go back to the tires. With this aero package, creating that bubble around the car, when you get inside that bubble, much like you get inside of the bubble of an F1 car with high top focus downforce, you're going to scrub more on those tires. They're going to basically slide up the track a little more, using more of that grip and that rubber. So it actually might be somewhat of a conscious decision of some of these drivers too, to where I'm going to hang back and not ruin my tires, hang around, and then try to mount some sort of push toward the end where I use up all the rubber I have and hope I can hang on to it and get a pass done to win this thing.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And on top of that, I see that, you look at some of the drivers that are up there. You look at Kovacevic, you look at Neri-Jardine, specifically Neri-Jardine and Van der Linden, who that was the strategy they pulled in the first run and ended up getting them that 6-second lead eventually because they had the tires. But you look at somebody like Stefan Montana, and you look at, how quiet he usually is. I think you're kind of right there, Parker. I think that he is kind of just hanging around and waiting right now because of, that's just his nature. We don't really see him get aggressive often. It does happen. It can and has and will, but it's not as extreme. He knows when to turn up the wick a bit, especially on these bigger racetracks. So I think you are right. I think a lot of that is just kind of hanging back. Now that they've caught the lap traffic of Matthias Michelin, they're going to lose that gap a little more. Now are you getting a little bit concerned if you're Montana? Because now you're getting into a range where maybe you're getting close to losing the draft.
Yeah, I would definitely be turning it up here. Unfortunately, they caught, I believe that was Astrid Crane. just at sort of the wrong moment there. But yeah, it all still looks like Marcelli's car is just set up very well. I would say late in a fuel run, but he made his pit stop, and that car just looks like they made all the right changes to get the handling back into that thing since he fell from the pole.
Yeah, and it just shows how strong the car really can be. You make those adjustments for the race, and maybe you get them wrong, but sometimes you just unload the car from the back of the trailer, and it is just hooked up. Sometimes you just have the car, and you could put a good setup or a bad setup on it, but it's in the nature of being able to make the car as fluid as possible to where you can swing it around like that. If you have a bad run, it's not always about having the best car on the race day. It's about being able to adapt the best. And I think that they've definitely adapted the best because the start was not as good as it was in qualifying. But right now, back on point, running very well. I think this could be the day Marcelli picks up a win on a big oval if he keeps this up.
But let's head back and take a look at is that Stefan Montana? I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, he's already closing that gap. As we can see, back to about that 2.25 of a second.
Well, I think what happened here is now that Montana cleared that lap traffic, also Marcelli didn't have anybody in front of him to draft off of, and it became kind of one of those deals where if you get enough of a run, you can pierce the bubble. And whether or not it was it was a conscious bubble or not, I think Montana says, okay, I want to go now. And he's gotten it down to within 0.2, and I think it'll be interesting to see if he can hang on here and push it even further. It looks like he might have lost a little bit of ground this time by, and yep, he's back to a 0.25 second. So maybe it is a conscious bubble because it looks like he definitely pierced it there, at least on a physical standpoint. And see if he hangs back or tries to push the limit any.
He might
also
actually be. He might be doing what Parker said earlier, where he's kind of sitting back. He's gonna push and catch up until he gets to it. He's like, okay, I'll sit back here. We still got time. I'm just gonna sit here. And
I think that's what I was mentioning there with that conscious bubble, where the physical bubble being the air is pushing you out, with the conscious bubble being what Parker was talking about with the I'm gonna hang back a little bit. And I think that physically, he did pierce the bubble there. He got within about 1/10 and within 0.2 rather. But now I think it's going to be a bit interesting to see because you see the 67 and you see the 76 there getting closer and closer to Montana. Costa Montero is one of those drivers where he will not be afraid to turn the wick up and make that move back for second. I think that he saw the way that Montana passed him. I think he wants to get Montana back. Nothing wrong with the pass that Montana made, but obviously when you get passed by somebody, you want to do it back to them. I think Costa Montero is ready for another run, at least for second place here. And I feel like that might actually force Montana to either let him go or go faster on his own here and catch back up and force himself into passing the 7, but it looks like he's going to let Costa Montero go. And
that's an ambiguous term. That's an ambiguous term. I wouldn't say let him go, because if you're letting him go, you're not going to stay beside him for almost the third of the lap.
He didn't fight it. I think he saw that Costa Montero had the bigger... Oh, never mind, because I think he saw that Costa Montero had the bigger run and had more speed and let him... He didn't really defend the bottom line too much. He kind of just let him go on the bottom, but then as we went into turn 3 there, he looked like he was peeking underneath once more. But now Costa Montero comfortably moves into second place with a little bit of breathing space here. We're getting closer and closer to lap 200, and we're opening ourselves into a door now where you can make it if you were to start pitting now.
I would go further and say that you could probably you could probably go without pitting. It's a gamble.
That's where the question becomes, is it quicker to pit in a few, and maybe 10, 15 laps, or is it better to stay out? Because we saw how fast Kaylee Zappa was screaming around this racetrack. If you have a car that can make passes and you're sitting in 15th place, you're not going to be able to draft your way back up. I say pit at about that lap 200 mark and put that final run in there, because you're going to be making up a lot of time. I don't know how much you can make up to negate a full pit stop, but it may be
I
worth
don't
it.
think that gap's enough yet. I think because we're not quite to 40 laps, and that's where the drop off really begins. I don't think we're quite to that point yet. It's difficult. If you pit too early, you've given it up. Because when everyone else pits, now you're on the back foot, and what you've gained, you're going to lose much quicker.
Speaking of losing there, you saw that Mateus Michelin holding up the lane here. This is going to force the leaders all nose to tail, the first three. Costa Montero, hungry to get the lead here. Looking through the dog leg. Probably going to have to wait till turn 3. That seems to be where most of the passes have happened, in that higher bank turn 3. Remember, turns 1 and 2, a little flatter than 3 and 4. And Costa Montero is going to peek out down turn 2, looking in turn 3, inside of the 7. Is he going to be able to take the lead? They're even. Marcelli can't really fight it on the top with the way the tires are wearing right now. And Costa Montero will take the lead. Now, is Montana going to take advantage of this or not is the question. Here. Looks like he might try and do the same thing Costa Montero did. Maybe not. You see Marcelli taking a bit defensive.
Yeah, it looks like he was going to try and stay high, and Marcelli did a good job to move up there. Honestly, if I'm a crew chief right now sitting on the box, one thing I'm saying is we're going to stay out until we see a caution. Let's see what happens. We all know it's going to get probably a little crazy going into the last 20 laps of this race. Stay out, keep my track position, and then we'll play it by ear as we come in and see whether or not we get a caution later on.
I'm telling you what, dude. Stefan Montana was touching that 7 going into turn 3. That front wing and that rear bumper guard, they were touching. I don't know how. If they didn't touch, I will be fairly surprised, because that is the closest I think we've seen cars get without massive implications today.
It's within 40 to go. Well, almost 40 to go. It's be about 3 laps until 40 to go. So, yeah, if you're going to set yourself up for an early pit stop, this is probably how you do it. You start making those track positions while you can. Make the most of these tires, because you're not using them to the same extent you did the previous sets. You know that you can just waste these if you're coming in early. That might be the case. You might have been onto something with that short pit.
And here's the question I have. If you are one of those cars sitting 15th and you were originally planning to short pit, if these leaders short pit before you, do you stay out then and flip the strategy just to do the opposite in case something happens?
Probably. It's going to be difficult, because you're trying to make fuel. You're trying to make 70 liters of fuel last 90 laps. As a driver, you can sit in 6th gear all day long. You can turn it down to 1 and just save as much as you can. That's difficult. That's hard. If you're 15, you've got to map it out perfectly. Some can. There's some sensational talents that can do that. That's difficult. I never could.
Yeah. I mean that's asking a lot, though. Even when you have the engine mode down and all that, that is asking a lot of the cars, and some of it may come down to the engine manufacturer and how quickly each one burns fuel, because while they are all relatively the same, there are slight differences there. You see the Alpines, they're a bit faster on these big ovals. They probably burn a little extra gas. And you take a look at this, to a 1.5 mile racetrack, you ask them to run 90 laps, that's 135 miles on a tank of fuel going at 200 plus. These run very high revs. That is asking a big amount from these drivers, but I think it can be done.
And these are not small engines. These are V8s. These are purpose-built V8s that are supposed to balance power, 700 horsepower, with making 70 liters last as long as possible. You mentioned Alpine going faster. Part of that's the aero kit. Part of that is the engine. How much of that is the aero kit, though? You start asking, what's the balance? Where's all that benefit coming from? And that's something that obviously the manufacturers are going to hold close to their chest. They're not going to say, "Here's how we did this."
Maybe at the end of the
I've never seen a manufacturer
but-
do. I've never, not even Audi when they left. They're just like, "Yeah, you can figure it out on your own. See ya." You see Costa Montero, who probably should be excited, performing this well, and he's going to get an upgrade for his engine at Indianapolis, so he's going to be even better. He's probably dancing right now in that seat. Probably not now, probably on the cooldown lap, because he's like, we did this, and we don't have the update yet. Probably grinning from ear to ear, because he's pretty easy to make happy. But trying to make this fuel last all that long, it's possible. If these guys short pit right about now is the window. If these guys short pit and you're sitting 15th, one, you got to lap them. You have to lap them. If you do not, it is bust. Immediately bust.
And I think if you're anybody that's a bit further down than 5th place, that should be a relatively easy task. Because you look all the way down to 10th place, only in 10th place, already 6 seconds back. I think that'll be a fairly easy task. The way that they lap around this track and how fast they go, they'll probably be about a lap and a half down if they're more than 10 seconds back. Maybe even 2 laps down if they have a slow stop or pit road gets congested. So I don't think that'll be so much of an issue.
I counter your point. We have a Muhammad Ahmed in the field.
Hey, you know what? As long as the only way I think that you can make a pit stop and come out and not go a lap down is if CUNY Kenosha decides to smack the wall again like she did at Homestead and then refuses to pull off the track and just plays a blocking game with the 76. That's about the only way I can imagine you could pit at Texas and not lose a lap.
We don't have that, but we have an Irishman who's been running most of this race without a rear wing.
But he hasn't been nearly as slow. They only slow down by about a second, maybe 2 seconds, depending on how long they're behind him
That's
when they
a short
catch
pit.
him. Yeah, that's
New
New
Jersey just came in a
Jersey.
pit lane. Yeah.
You called me crazy, Hardy, but look at what's happened here.
Hey, I'm just a driver. There's a reason I just follow directions. I'm allowed to call you crazy because I'm never right.
Do you know who I am? I am known for breaking team orders, and look at the speed difference. I think this may have been the call. Look at how quickly Nuri Jardine, a very strong car as it is, and she's unlapped herself now, I believe, as well. So this is huge.
And here they come.
There's Costa Montero.
Yeah, Costa Montero. I don't think they planned on doing that. I think Costa Montero is
No.
reacting to that. Look at that. The pit crew isn't even ready. They reacted to that. I'm looking out of the press box now, and they were hopping over the wall still, getting things ready as Costa Montero came down pit lane. He saw Nuri Jardine scream by, and he dove into the pit lane. So this is going to be causing a lot of sweat on the race engineers' brows right now, and it's going to be interesting to see which one is going to be the way to play out, because right now Marcelli is leading once again with Montana and then Draco back into the top 3. And you know what? This is going to be a fun development.
Depends on which side of the ball you're on. If you're behind the 8 ball, like Marcelli is right now, oh, you've made your bed and you're lying in it now. You have missed the window.
I don't know. I
needed
think
to
if you went right now, I think you have enough time to stay on sequence, but that is the question you ask. How many more laps can you wait to make that decision, or is it already too late now?
I think it's too late. I think it's one of those things you have to make it as soon as possible because he's losing time to Costa Montero. That's his competition right now. The only positive you can take from it is that Montero is the only one of the leaders to come in and short. Montana's still out there. You got Draco who's still out there.
Well, Nuri Jardine
Montana-
was up there a bit as well.
Yeah, Nuri Jardine was up there. Kovalkiewicz was up there. And you see, there's Kovalkiewicz.
Yep, right behind.
She's
This is a bit of a
Look
gaggle
back there.
here.
Oh,
Oh, 3 wide. Lechty has damage, remember.
Oh,
And she
Oh.
she missed the penalty.
Wow! Did she hit the commitment cone, I wonder? Oh, she
Oh, she
definitely.
did.
Yeah. Wow. But hats off to everybody there from not making that a big crash, because that was fixing to be a massive crash. Parker, you can sit down now.
yeah. Yeah, not sure why Lechty had to leave it to the last minute. It's not like there's
That's
any gamemanship you really need to
That's
do.
the second time she's done that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she might take a trip to the steward's office after that, because that is pretty dangerous. And granted, it's not like stock cars where waving your hand. Now the caution waves.
Caution is out.
Third one of the day. I believe it's actually the fourth one of the day. Well, I guess that Hardy pointed out that one caution was technically not counted. You see smoke down the front stretch. So the third.
Cameron.
Is that Cameron Jackson?
No.
Oh no.
And that is a bummer. But the question now raises is, was it an engine failure followed by oil causing a crash, or was it a crash by causing the engine to go up in flames there? Because I don't really see a lot of damage on that 19 car. Nevertheless, he was on the lead lap too. He was looking committed to that staying out strategy. See if we get a replay. And Jaramillo there up. Yep, just hooked and around. Oh my goodness.
I'm wrong about that. That was a
Oh, okay, yeah, that was a med there, and just I don't know really whose fault that was. I think a med maybe was pushing it the limit a little bit, but he was there at the exit of the corner, so maybe Cameron just was struggling with the tires. Maybe just didn't expect him there. Looked like a racing deal to me. Oh, we have trouble for the 43 car.
Seems some people might be trying to figure out where they're lining up.
Yeah, but that 43 car is a bit lower and
down.
he's off pace. Yeah, he's off pace and on the apron. I believe. Yeah, Taylor's got a problem, guys.
Well up for a significant. Was waiting for the strategy to sort of reset itself before we would be able to sort of see where he recycled through. But here's your 20 to go, roughly caution flag that we normally get.
And you know what, Parker? Cautions breed cautions. We have 6 cars scored on the lead lap. Well, technically 7, but now going down as everybody puts the lap down. And now we have another situation here where the field is in front of the leaders. Your real leader right now is Jaramillo. And you can see actually only 3 cars are technically on the lead lap. Well, not technically on the lead lap, but realistically, only 3 cars on the lead lap. And last time we had a scenario like this, we had a caution almost immediately afterward. Jaramillo is leading with Barris Windross, and somebody who we haven't talked about all day, despite usually doing pretty well on the ovals, Alex Rivera. He has 1 win in 2017 at Calder Park, which was an oval, and he's got 2 podiums and 2 poles otherwise. But I tell you what, that Target car is looking pretty strong.
I've been looking at Ray Taylor. It looks like that issue that he's having is a gearbox issue. He is locked in higher gear.
That is. Now I wonder, is it going to be worth it to try and stay out in that higher gear and just suffer on restarts, or if they retired? I believe they probably retired the car.
Do you not think so? I think they are going to try to stay out game because they need the points. They are below the top 24 right now. They need those points, so they're probably going to try to unlock the gearbox or reset the gearbox because it's electronic and try to get it back out there.
Let's see what they can do here as we're getting geared up for another awkward restart. Place your bets, guys. We've got about 30 laps to go. We've got 30 to go. We've got a whole bunch of quote-unquote lapped cars in front of 3 lead lappers, and I believe that is actually Taylor in the back there. Place your bets. We gonna make it to the end without a caution?
No. I'll put my mortgage on that.
Most likely not, but it'll be real interesting to see what happens with these guys who have the new tires on versus Diego Barris and Alex Rivera, who I'm assuming aren't on new tires.
I
They
don't
they
think
did
so.
pit.
Oh, they did.
did?
Okay.
All right.
They pit well because when we came out of replay, they were just not coming out of pit.
Well, here we are. We're looking at our 2016 Rookie of the Year, who has 2 wins, both of them coming on ovals, one of them at Pocono, a bigger oval. We'll see what he can do here. Diego Aramillo carrying the Spain's pride here as the green flag flies. Windross right up on that gearbox here. We're back underway, just under 30 to go at Texas. Wow, 3 wide. Look at Rivera send it up the inside there. Now side by side with Windross. 3 wide. Oh, big crash down the back straightaway. Caution's out. A huge hit for Jaramillo. That's going to bring out a caution. And I believe Rivera snuck through. And just like last time, guys, we knew it was going to happen. It just gets really dicey with those lap cars in front. Huge crash. That is Lecby spinning down the backstretch. And
Yeah.
you got to hate that for Jaramillo, man. He got a little too excited, tried to split the middle, gets Dakota in there as well. I think Rivera just got move of the race for dodging that one. I don't know how he got through that. I hope we get an onboard of that 11 car because that was unbelievable. On board here with Jaramillo. The pressure's on here. He knows he's got Windross there and just not enough room. It just wasn't going to happen. And unfortunately, he's out of the race now as a result, and that's a bummer. But honestly, I think that was just a bit of a young driver error. I didn't see the move really working there.
No, and I agree there, Nas. He just tried to fit the full width of an Indy car, and in the area where he could only fit maybe a quarter of a width of an Indy car. Hopefully, he'll learn from that mistake. Take onus in the fact that he was able to get up front through strategy and lead this race. But look at this. We have Alex Rivera up front with Barris Windross lurking behind.
And
But this really changes the complexion of this race.
Absolutely, and you look at who's back in this now. You got Kovacevic back. You've got Aaron Vanderlinden back as well. You got Nico Costa Montero. Jamie Nuri Jardine's back in the hunt, as well as Ishibashi and Espinoza as well. I mean, we got a lot of drivers back in the fray here after that, and I think that while it's very disappointing to see Diego Aramillo crash out like that, it really sets us up for a good race because now we're going to have a classic little shootout. Only about 20-25 to go. We got a lot of hungry drivers and a lot of the top runners today. We're going to go at least one more lap under yellow here. And I think that Alex Rivera's aggressiveness kind of prompted Diego Aramillo to, I guess, kind of choke it. You saw how aggressive that Rivera was. He threw it in the bottom underneath Windross. Windross was not really wanting to release the position, but he really just didn't want to put himself into a bad situation. I think Jaramillo may have saw that, got very excited, knows how aggressive Rivera will be, and maybe was caught in the mirrors, and maybe that was why he kind of threw it in there, because it's unlike Jaramillo to really make an aggressive, and not to make an aggressive move, but when he makes them, very rarely does he make a mistake. I think he may have been caught in the mirrors, focusing on that 11 car, looked up, and was in a sandwich of lap cars.
No, that's probably a very astute observation there, Nas. Especially starting as far back in the pack, the key thing would be don't get caught behind lap traffic and then just have your competitor who you're racing with blow by you and put you in a 4-second hole because he's able to navigate lap traffic better than you. But I don't know, Clayton, did you see anything else maybe?
It's hard because Jaramillo, he was behind Dakota, so teammates were right there, and it's really difficult because obviously Jaramillo is shooting for a gap that he sees is there, but at the same time, Lecty is moving up because she's got room, but it's hard to describe being in that position. Once again, been in that position. I've been behind lap cars and crashed out. Dover. It's really it's hard because you don't want a mirror drive. It's one of those things where if he's going to pick a lane, he's going to pick a lane, whatever. My curiosity is why he tried to make a run on his teammate with the knowledge that he probably was driving into a disappearing wedge. That hole was never going to stay there.
And that's why I think that maybe he was caught in the mirrors, because it's very unlike him to do that. And of course, he was very aggressive in his rookie season, but even in his rookie season when he was aggressive, that sort of thing didn't happen. We're getting ready to take the restart here, but it just seems like I believe he was caught in the mirrors. I think he was focused on Rivera. I don't think that anybody expected Rivera to make the dive, but it worked out. And I think that's what attributed to what happened there. You see, Jacob Dakota was involved in that accident, is actually on the inside line now as a lap car. Clayton, I'll let you pick up your thought here, but before that, we will go back to green flag here on lap 223 on to 224. Sets us up with a little less than 25 to go.
Now, that was a great restart by Barris Windross there. And
that's 2 in a row now.
Kovacevic also had a great job at restarting too from the rookie.
How about Vander Linden, though? He's going to go all the way to the lead. What a move! He went from 4th to 1st in one turn.
Nico
and he's gone.
Did he
take a bow?
Wow, he
take
was.
A bow.
I mean, absolutely. And Parker and I were in the booth when he made those aggressive moves on lap traffic and Homestead. We're wondering, he's got to be trying something for later. That wasn't even an aggressive move. He just simply sent it on the bottom, and no one saw him coming. And it was too late to make any defense.
That's exactly right, Nas. He just had the car, and he said, bye.
And he's saying, I might win my first race now on a big oval. First race of the season it would be if he could hang on, and that's the kind of moves you got to make. And you can hear the inflection in my voice. I'm seeing Motegi all over again here. That was absolutely textbook. 3 cars in the stretch of a half a lap, 2 of them in one corner, 1 down the backstretch, and now Windross says it's time to go. And I don't even think anything's wrong with Rivera. He just didn't get the best restart because he didn't have any draft, and he's clearly no issue because he's now back to the gearbox. Windross is going to move up into 2nd. Costa Montero, I think that is in the back of the screen. Actually, I don't know. They're very close. I think it might be. I think that's actually Draco. So
Draco 4th.
And he's back in the fight now too. This is absolutely cracking stuff, because now it looks like Windross might have a look into turn 3. He is. Barris Windross is going to make the move to the inside out of turn 4. Can he hold on? Look at Draco right on the gearbox now. Windross leads the lap. Draco on the gearbox. Vander Linden shuffled to the top. It's go time.
20 to go. It's showtime. It's ready to rumble time.
And here,
crazy.
Christy Espinoza looking underneath of
moved him
off the track.
Wow. And meanwhile, Vander Linden shuffled back to 5th, but Draco just moved in the same time that we saw that move for 3rd. Draco moved Windross. So Windross leads 1 lap and gets moved back to 2nd. And he's got to be thinking, oh, great. Here comes Michael White on the bottom now.
Michael White, the Indianapolis native who made that great move to stay out of that lap 1 crash. Look at where he is in the top 5.
He's going for the 2-for-1 special, too. He's underneath Rivera. Here comes Montana underneath Vander Linden. Vander Linden's like, what the heck happened? I'm the one who's supposed to be making these moves. Now he's all the way out of the top 5. Montana looking for 6th, but right now it's Draco out front with a lead over Windross, then Espinoza, then Rivera, then White as they come across the line. Your top 5 has just been thrown into the wind.
I like how this podium's a battle of the gladiators. Oh, and there's a Cherokee GP car in the middle. Awesome stuff.
This is absolutely fantastic racing. Windross moved. Espinoza is moving people now. She is taking no prisoners as she works her way through the field. She knows how to get it done here. 4 Indy 500s under Christine Espinoza's belt.
as Vander Linden loses another position and drops to 7th. I'm wondering if they got the tire pressures wrong for that car.
They certainly know what to do if it comes to a green-white checkered sort of scenario like it was at Homestead. But, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he just got too excited. Maybe he's just not able to get back in line here. There's a lot of things that are wondering how that happened, because he went from 4th to 1st, and now he's back to 7th and still dropping. I think he might have finally settled in now, but he's still losing time. And, yeah, I think it might have been a tire pressure thing. But right now, Andrew Draco leading the championship and the race, and this would be great for his extension of that lead if he can get it done here today. Espinoza, though, is trying to say not so fast.
These are the top two in the championship right now, Espinoza and Draco. This is a bit more important because it's these particular two drivers. If it was Draco and Ishibashi or Narita Ardeen, not so big. This is important. This is huge right now.
And it just shows you how close this championship battle is. And despite the fact that Espinoza failed to qualify for Phoenix, she's still second in points. I think she was saying to all the press and all the media, if I was at Phoenix, I'd be winning this championship right now. I'd be in the lead. And I think she's really trying to make a statement here by winning this race, but she's got to get around the current leader to do it. We're going to have 11 to go at the line. They're lined up nose to tail, about 6 or 7 cars deep, and it's going to be interesting to see if anybody has any moves left. Either way, that was a very crazy start, or restart rather, and right now I think Espinoza is inching closer and closer as these laps wind down. She's within 0.2 of a second now. I mean, she's inside the bubble. Windross might not be done yet, and Rivera regrouped, re-racked. I think he's ready to go as well.
There's the dive.
There's the move. There's the move. Espinoza on the inside of Draco. They're side by side out of turn 4. Windross, is he going to try and make a move for second now is the question. And at the line, Espinoza out front. And here comes Windross.
10 to go.
Moved him up.
10 laps to go, and Windross is getting aggressive. Moves the one a bit high, but can't complete the pass yet. It might be done through here. They're coming up on lap traffic. Here comes the one. Wow! Inside, back to the front. Put the one car atop the leaderboard once again, and now that's really going to hurt Espinoza because Windross is there, and he's not giving this one up.
The current business market right now. The current business market right now is moving people up, and business is booming.
Yeah, absolutely. And Parker, I was going to let you say what you were going to say in a second, but now that they've caught the lap traffic, it's going to get even more sketchy. Look at this. Here comes Windross up the back because Regis is holding up your leader. And at the line, Windross is trying to make it 3 wide almost in the middle. Thinks better of it. Goes back to the bottom. 8 laps to go. It's really heating up, Parker.
Oh, definitely. I was going to say, Andrew Draco just basically said to the 4-time Indy 500 winner, out of my way. Just gave her a shot up the track. That was an aggressive move. But she seemed to have fallen quite a ways back, sitting there in 6th. Seems like she got stuck behind Andrew Regis there. But
she's lost the draft.
Oh, that's not going to be good for Christina at all. But yeah, we have this sort of 5-car breakaway. So coming to the line here, we're going to have roughly 6 to go. This is going to be quite the shootout.
Look at Michael White right on Windross's bumper guard, and Windross is not giving up. This is the most aggressive we've seen the 33 drive all career, and it is really seeming to pay off because he's got a real shot to win this race. And Michael White, we haven't talked about him since the start of the race. He missed the big one from the back of the pack, made his way up slowly but surely, was in the top 10, then the top 5, and suddenly he's on the podium with a chance to win. 5 to go at the line. It is Draco from Windross, from White, from Montana, from Rivera, and that is the 5-car breakaway as it stands. It looks like Draco may hold on to this one, but I think Windross has something yet.
It's almost as if it's almost as if Windross heard us saying, "Cool, calm, and collected," and he's just like, "What?"
Hold my beer.
No kidding.
And something to look at, too, as we talked about Alpine's dominance all race long, we only have really one Alpine car in Barris Windross representing that OEM up front.
He has won one race in his career, and it came at Road America, a race that Hardy and I will remember was full of tempers flaring, bumper bashing, fist throwing fun. And
Took part in that.
yeah,
It was fun.
It was fun to watch, and there are a lot of angry drivers after this one. But in an equally as crazy race, Barris Windross is right here, and he's got just a mirror full of Michael White. I think White is just yelling and screaming right now. He's got to let me go because I can win this race. But Windross is saying I can still win too. He's backing up. If they can get a solid run here, 2 laps to go, now a lap and a half, this might not be over yet. They're going to get a chance for one more big run if they can get it formulated. But Windross is going to have to run absolutely perfect. We look back through the field here. We look at the drivers as they run right now. It looks like we're going to have a clean finish to the end here unless they wreck up front, because that's where the best racing is at. White flag in the air. Draco going to catch a lap car here. I believe that might be Taylor, as it looks like Windross is going to close the gap a bit here. He's going to have one shot going into turn 3, going down the backstretch, side by side. Not yet, but he's going to think about it. Windross looking underneath the one. Can he move him with the air? He does. He gets there. Side by side coming to the line. Can't quite get it. Draco wins by a half a car length over Barris Windross. And I told you, he wasn't done.
0.04 of a second is all Barris Windross had standing between him and his second NAMRA Vodafone IndyCar race win.
And guys, this is huge for many reasons, because that's the most aggressive we've seen that 33 car push ever. And it almost paid off, but even more so, Andrew Draco wins the race, and look where Christine Espinoza is. She fell out of the top 10, I believe. Yeah. So that is massive for the point standings. We look at Aaron Vander Linden there, who was looking strong, up to 7th. We got some contact on pit road, guys, the 7, and I'm not sure who else that was, but they were bumping coming onto pit road. I'm having so many flashbacks from Road America, I can't even control myself.
What a finish.
Absolutely, and that was a wild finish. And I saw Andrew Draco check up in that second one. He almost put it in the wall, pushing that thing to the end, and it almost cost him, even if he didn't hit the wall.
Is that one of the closest finishes we've ever had in the series?
I am seeing shades of Lausitz. Yeah, I'm going to have to check on Lausitz. Angel Porter
finishing 11th. Kovacevic 12th, respectable.
Yes. We see Marie Jardine 13th, and then Marcelli, the pole sitter, fell off at the end. And Rogers, who is in the field, final car on the lead lap, 15th.
It's okay. I'm allowed to be incorrect sometimes. Absolutely good points.
As we have a fair amount of cars that just didn't make it to the finish, from 25th on down to 33. Just almost, would that be 8-9 cars out of the race?
We've seen bigger chunks of the field be wiped out before, but I mean, most of that was in about the first caution. We lost 6 cars in that first crash, and we can confirm everybody is okay from that. We didn't pass it along, but everybody has been checked and cleared. No problems there, so that's probably the best news from that crash, and everyone's all right. Miguel Espinoza was the one with the most concern there, but everybody's all right, as well as Jerome Torres. The only 2 that we hadn't mentioned were released, but they are fine. And as we look at the bottom of the grid here, Michael White making his first start, not Michael White, excuse me, the 50 of Matthew Evans making his first start. Can't finish any better than last. And guys, crazy finish, crazy race. Send it down for the national anthems to be played for our podium finishers. And in a place like Texas, that anthem is always responded to with applause. And after that crazy race and the podium ceremonies completed, let's take a look at the championship standings. Andrew Draco extends the lead over Christine Espinoza, who now drops to Barris Windross, the quietest man on the grid. No longer. He has made his name known for sure. He is ready to fight. Sakura Ishibashi fourth, and Alex Rivera in fifth. Everybody there except for Christine either staying the same or moving up. Jamie Marie Jardine, Ryan Perlstein, Michael White, Astrid Crane, and Patrick Marcelli, the top 10.
See Nicole Lecty just outside the top 10, sitting 11th. Not obviously the race, not obviously a good race, but quite comfortable still. One bad race doesn't make a season, obviously. Kaylee Zappo also losing, involved in incidents today.
How about Niarite? He's moving up another 4 spots after winning Phoenix.
Phoenix.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a crazy surprise to see him win Phoenix. And then on top of that, put another good finish. He's moving up through the field as well. Now what we're looking at is that 24th and below sort of range. This is the danger zone for the next reset. This is where a lot of the fighting is going to be at.
Yeah, Sicas Montero, good finish here, bumps him up quite a bit. Cameron Jackson, obviously involved in an accident, got DNF, dropped 4 spots. Jerome Torres, don't believe qualified. I think this is his first failure to qualify, so he dropped positions naturally. Tyler Parker. Yeah, Torres failed to qualify, I believe.
Torres was involved in that first lap accident.
Oh, that's right, he was. See, I need guidance. Tyler Parker, also involved in that first lap accident. He's lost positions. He's now on the bubble, but you've got time until Toronto. That's when the next reset happens. Not too bad. William Manor, Thomas Rodriguez. Is so many good drivers down there. Obviously someone has to be down there, but it's so unfathomable how so many talented drivers are down there.
I think part of that comes back on the fact that, a lot of those drivers were involved in that first lap accident, and a couple of the drivers that are really quick just got caught out by the points not being locked in, and it takes a toll on you for sure. I mean, Christine Espinoza maybe would have been thinking a little bit more conservatively, would have played her cards a little better if she had made the race at Phoenix and had gotten that finish. I think that's where a lot of that fell back on. Parker, you have anything to add?
No, it's just going to be really interesting. Again, this is the last race before the big one, the Indy 500, which is going to be in the next couple of weeks. From this date, it'll just be interesting who really takes the momentum from this race and transfers that into the 500.
Absolutely, and we'll see you there. Hopefully, we hope you enjoyed today's race, and we hope that the coverage was sufficient. Thank you all so much for watching. From Parker, from Hardy, from NAS, we'll see you next time.